So we're going to go ahead and get started because I know that this session will go quickly. Welcome everyone, and I'm going to be joining you in a moment, so if I'm standing behind you and you can't see me, it's all right. Again, this presentation is available if you want to do the bit.ly, and it'll force you to make a copy, but you can make your notes on that, and again, there's lots of links I'll share with you. My name is Jenelle Peterson. I'm the director now, I say now because I wasn't before. I'm the director of Hawaii Technology Academy, Maui based. We are a school-wide charter school, so we're in Kauai, Maui, Kona, Oahu based. And actually, before we get started, because I've been going to a lot of breakout sessions on SEL, I want to encourage you just for a moment to pause. Take a comfortable seat. If your legs are crossed, you can put them both on the floor. Allow yourself to sit up straight and just let your spine be long. And take a moment to connect with your breath. And if you feel comfortable, I also invite you to close your eyes, but I also know that's sometimes outside of someone's comfort zone, so then just find a spot on the wall. And then just take a moment to connect with the quality of your breathing. So breathe in long, and exhale out. Relax your shoulders on the exhale. Take another deep breath in. Exhale out. And do this a few more times on your own. And when you feel ready, gently open your eyes. See someone across the circle, give them a big smile. All right, we learned about the power of a smile this morning. So welcome. What I experience with these conferences is there's a lot of information, and it's almost information overload. And you won't necessarily know what you're going to take from it a couple days from now, and what you receive begins to really trickle down, and then you start to see where there's application. The breath is a wonderful way to just give yourself time to become present, to become available. So for this moment now, in the next hour, I'm going to invite you to be fully present in this experience at this time. To the extent that your brain fires and connects with something that you gleaned yesterday or today, please capture it, because that's the way our brain works. At the same time, try and stay in that heart space, dropping from the head to the heart as much as possible. Okay, that's my invitation to you. I'm going to share a little bit about who I am, so you have a context for what it is I'm going to be sharing with you today. So my undergraduate studies many, many years ago was actually in resiliency, specifically as related to inner city educational reform. I had a love for the students who were in the inner city against the odds. And I wanted to know, how did we create curriculum and classroom experiences that help our students achieve when everything's stacked against them, right? We heard a little bit about that this morning as well. That was my driver. That was my passion. And so I began in South Central LA and decided to head to the new school, Dewey's School in New York City, because I wanted to learn about how we could better meet the malaligned learner, maladjusted learner, the one who wasn't making it, right? That actually led, probably similar to you, onto another journey, which actually involved creating meditation experiences for young people, as young as 3 years old. And yes, they can meditate. It just doesn't take them as long as it does for adults. And so after that experience and practicing it myself, learning how to be a mindful practitioner, I ended up working in the nonprofit and then returned to the classroom and actually met Rachel Kessler, who is the author, for those of you who don't know, of the book, The Soul of Education. Some of what I'm going to share with you is old, 20, 30 years old. And I'm always floored at how we've known this all along, right? Just like the speaker shared. Her dad knew best practices. It just took us 30 years to codify it, to find the research to back it up. And so was this is the case for Rachel Kessler. She was actually a grief counselor. She was called into Columbine. How many of you remember Columbine? Right? I wish that that was the only time. Right? I wish that was the only moment we had to reference. But as you know, it's not. And so the why for me today, and I'm going to talk about the why, there was a call for proposals. And I've done this a couple years. I finally said, all right, I'm done. People aren't interested. I'm going to cut my losses, move on. Call for proposals. What do we know happened Valentine's Day last year? Florida shooting, right? I know I'm being recorded, but I just had that, God damn it, moment. Like, why is this still happening? This isn't okay. And it's my passion. So I went ahead and said, all right, I'm gonna step up. I'm gonna do a proposal. And as I was preparing for this presentation, during the interrogation, Nicholas Cruz said he had tried to kill himself already. He tried to kill himself drinking, taking some over-the-counter pain medicine after his mom died. When I saw that, I know there's arguments about gun control, who has them, who has access. At the end of the day, this is this one child, okay? I can't explain his why. I really can't. I can't go there. But I can look at the symptoms. And as an administrator, I see this almost every week. Can we just name that? I'm constantly taking walks with my students, taking them for coffee, whatever it is, right? And when I saw that, there was a missed opportunity. That's what I see. That was a missed opportunity. We already know, so I'm not going to go into it, what's hurting our kids, right? And this is actually a blog that connects to the introduction of the smartphone. Maybe you're a part of that conversation too. The data that shows as soon as the smartphone really took off, so did depression, suicide, loneliness, right? Hanging out less with friends, going out on fewer dates. I mean, the correlations are very intriguing. And then, of course, these are all links with data. Suicide rate doubling, increase in teen depression, increase in ADHD, which this morning we were talking about, what's really at the cause. Mental health problems. If you ever go YouTube, in 2028, dun, 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 it'll say that depression is the leading cause of mental health disease. It's not what we think it would be. So knowing that, we knew that, didn't we? Right? What are we going to do about it? Well, reality is, as we heard today, the brain is hardwired for connection. And again, this was an actual report from 2003 when I started doing this work, Commission on Children at Risk. People are hardwired to connect to other people, to values, to meaning making, finding purpose. If you end up Googling me and watching my TED Talk on how to engage students in conversations that matter, one of the pieces I use from the PassageWorks curriculum is the mystery questions. And in there, fourth graders are saying, why was I born? I want to know what my purpose in life is. They're also wondering if fairies are real, right? But a real drive, especially at around 10, there's an awakening of critical consciousness there where they're really striving to have a sense of meaning. It's not 18, it's not midlife crisis, it's 9, it's 10. They want to know because they're hardwired to long for that. Even more recent research indicates that the need to connect socially is as basic as the need for food, water, and shelter. Food, water, shelter, equal to that. Some of the more recent research that's come out of UCLA, and if you want to watch Matthew Lieberman's TED Talk, Social Why Our Brains Are Wired to Connect, the link is there. His research says that when we're rejected, and they did a whole scenario with this, we actually experience social pain in the brain, in the same location of the brain, our brains hurt in the same way as when we experience physical pain. I'm going to pause there and let that sink in. Social pain stimulates in the region of the brain in the same way it does for physical pain. And yet, we wouldn't expect someone to just get over it who has a broken leg. What would we do? What would we do? Treat it, bind it, give them crutches, support, time, right? Yeah. A student of ours recently, 2 of her uncles committed suicide. Does she have an imprint then, a model in her family for suicide? You bet. Is she depressed? Yes. The response from one of our teachers was to simply say, oh, focus on your school, it'll help you get through this, right? It'll distract you from what's going on, it'll be better for you. And of course, it's not working, right? Why wouldn't it? So when you think about this, I actually want you to pause for a moment now and think about a learning experience, and I know this has happened throughout the day today, but think about a learning experience from your youth that stands out for you. Positive or not, I don't want you to judge it. Think about a moment, a learning experience from your youth that stands out for you. And now I'm curious to know, and this is just, you're indulging me, for how many of you does that conjure up a memory of positive? Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hands down. How many of you does it conjure up an image of negative? Okay. By sight, it looks like you're the majority, right? And I'm not surprised. I still remember my red ink. Right? It's why, as a teacher, I only use purple or green. This is what we know, too. Emotion drives attention, which is actually going to drive learning and memory. Right? Emotion is what's driving the attention. So whether that was a positive learning experience for you or not, that learning took place, or that imprint, rather, took place because it was driven by emotion. So now, as educators, take a step back. What are the implications of this for you in your work with young people? And I don't know if this is working. Do you have to turn it on? Hello? Probably have to turn it on. All right, I'm going to go with this because it's softer and it's smaller. Implications for our young people today. Knowing that they need social acceptance, right? That they're wired to connect, and that emotion is driving their attention, which is driving their learning. Anyone want to? I'll roll it if you don't want to catch it. Anyone want to take a stab? What does that mean for us as educators? Any takers? There are no wrong answers. What do we want to provide for them? Okay, you're shaking your head. I saw that.
Oh, okay.
Introduce yourself, bud.
My name is Peter Renesis, resource teacher, Campbell Copley district. I think the first thing that popped up into my mind is relationship, is connection, is the most important thing. And in our particular population, it's high risk. It's disciplinary transfers within our program. So the approach that I like to take, and even just the philosophy of the school, is developing relationships with our students.
Relationship and connection. Great. Thank you. You get to pass it to someone else. I saw a hand over here.
Okay. So first of all, I think it's very important to give them a sense of belonging.
Sense of belonging.
Yeah. So that they belong to that place, and I think that is, for me, it's a good point to start.
It's a good point to start.
When they understand that they belong to this place, the teacher belongs to them, and teacher understands that they belong to you. So that is very important.
So that they belong to the space, the teacher belongs to them. And what was the third one?
They belong to
that they belong to the teacher. I'm repeating this only because it's recorded and we don't have a microphone to go all the way around. Thank you. And we can just do one more. Like, what are the other implications to this? When you think about this, especially if you click on the article, it's really great. It goes deeper specifically into middle school students. What do we know about middle school students? You can't get them to be quiet. Why not? Because they are so social. They are so talkative. The most important thing in their world right now is that sense of belonging, that sense of connection, relationship, relationship, relationship. I certainly don't care about that math test. I do care what Susie thinks of me or whatever it is, right? So how do you make that your ally and not your enemy in the classroom? What are your thoughts on that? And some of you, and maybe all of you, are already doing that. You're already playing to their innate sort of state of being. Any ideas? Come on. Yes?
Cooperative learning.
Cooperative learning.
Sometimes you do your whole group instruction first, and then we break into groups. And that's when you do your cooperative
Right.
learning, or doing reading circles,
Right.
where they get to choose the book, and they have to sit and talk about it.
So those are your strategies, right? Okay, so those are your strategies. So what we're going to do is, thank you. She was saying cooperative learning, cooperative grouping. Okay, so then you're thinking, why did I come to this particular breakout session? What more am I going to get out of it? So if this is our starting point. The question is, how do we now make sure that those strategies are taking those relationships to a deeper, safer place? Right? Full disclosure, I love to use BuzzFeed. Totally biased, absolutely. I'm a history teacher, I should be unbiased, right? Why would I use BuzzFeed? What does it do intentionally? What does it evoke? Emotion. Emotion and opinions. So if I'm going to present a concept, I want an in. I want to evoke intentional emotion and opinion. I don't care if I'm going to agree with them or not, or whether they agree with me. In fact, even better, because now we have something to talk about. And as we talk about that concept, whether they want to know the learning that's coming or not, I have an in with them. And where we go now, we're going to go together. And they're going to remember that concept because I evoked intentionally that emotion. Okay? But I'm also a teacher that's very comfortable with displays of emotion because I know how to hold it. I know how to not take it on or take it personal. I know it's a reflection of the other person. Right? So those are just some of the things we're going to engage with today. Okay, so I want to talk just really briefly, I just already mentioned what I do in the classroom, but what it looks like at HTA. We're a blended learning program. Just so you know, we only see students twice a week. So you're like, how do you build relationships with students who you only meet 2 times? We only see them 2 times a week. Again, it's how we present the information even virtually to evoke that emotion. But then we also hire our advisors and our mentors first. Like when we look at teachers, we want to know who they are more than necessarily what or how they teach. We want to know who they are. So we're looking at what we call teaching presence, right? Who the teacher is when they're in the classroom. So looking at how do they create a sense of belonging in the classroom. That's our first hiring strategy. We actually incorporate the PassageWorks Institute approach. It's an advisory curriculum that as I mentioned, I came across many, many years ago that really addresses every aspect, and there are tons of fabulous SEL programs out there. So that's why I'm actually not going to really get into what that program looks like, because you're ultimately going to want to find the one that best reflects your program if you don't have one right now, looking at what is your intentional approach. What are the strategies you are going to use? We also strive to make the learning relevant and social through project-based approaches. I don't know how many of you all went to the PBL Buck Institute breakout session, but really looking at how, again, our instructional practices meet the needs of the type of learners we have. And then the last thing, there's been conversation about how do we assess SEL. We actually track through our core values of communication, character, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity, we track character development. It's actually part of their report card. We upload evidence, we take snapshots, we put anecdotal evidence, observations of where students have offered to buy students lunch, or whatever it is, right, that's showing character or critical thinking. So that's another push, and I'm sharing this with you from an administrative perspective of how, on a structural level, do you create a framework for this kind of learning to take place, okay? So again, this morning, learning about the brain science, what are the implications for classroom instruction? And then as an administrator, what are the implications for school-wide restructuring? What does it look like in our hiring practices, even in our teacher evaluation? That's my takeaway from this conference. How are we tracking, even in our teacher evaluation, maybe it sits under professionalism, how are they pushing in to provide SEL opportunities for our students? Let's see, did I skip ahead? Okay, so then a question for you as you come into this is just pause for a moment and reflect on what do you currently have in place to support your students' overall SEL development? The answer could be you. Right in this moment, the answer could be you, because you walk through those doors. You have a curiosity to know, how can I meet the needs of my learners better? So if you say, oh, Jenelle, I don't even know where we're going to start. We're so far behind you. They have you, okay? That's your starting point. I spent 8 years in a program waiting for the seeds that I was bringing to bear fruit. They didn't. So I left and found a school that did. But for 8 years, I did it, hoping, right? And those are the kids who still give me hugs and they're seniors when they see me around town. They were 4th graders when I had them. So that was me, and then I found a place that was willing to plant the seed, and now it's school-wide. Don't underestimate the power of you. And then think about, what do you need to put in place to better support your students? And they may not just be the students in your classroom. It may just be you making a point to get to know somebody else's students or to intervene when you think somebody else should. Right? Those are really small. So what we're going to do now is, again, we talked about the permission to be present. This is where hopefully you captured the bit.ly. If not, it'll be there on my last screen. Close your laptops. Turn your cell phones to vibrate if they aren't. And I want you to give yourself permission to play, or at least the very least, resist the urge to censor yourself. I always allow the right to pass. But if you choose the right to pass, there is an active role that you're going to take, which is as the observer. So if you choose to pass, you may, but that doesn't get you off the hook. I'm going to be asking you specifically, what did you see? What did you hear from others? You will always give your students that choice. Okay? The next thing, we're going to start off. I'm going to actually skip that. But I did want to just share with you, if you look at this later, these are the aspects of the Passage Works curriculum itself. Engaging the self-observer, being present, establishing respectful boundaries, developing emotional capacity, cultivating an open heart. And like I said, there's lots of SEL programs. They all have beautiful diagrams. I've seen a lot of them this week, and I'm thrilled. If you did want to learn more, they actually came out with this book, The 5 Dimensions of Engaged Teaching, because they actually want this stuff to be in everything that we do. It's not really a separate curriculum. It's how you integrate it into your academic course, okay? But this is what we're shooting for. And we'll see this again actually in a minute, but if you were to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5, right, because I want this session to be about cultivating what? Teaching presence, right? Because what we've heard is that it really starts with the teacher, not the curriculum. So cultivating that teacher presence, how willing are you to listen to others without judgment? You're going to do that today. How willing or comfortable are you sharing your emotions with others? You may or may not choose to go there today, and that's fine. Just think about it. Culturally, you may have been raised to not go there. When do you take time to reflect on what's going within or around you? When was the last time you went to just sit at the beach and listen to the waves? And I say that only because I have to force myself to do it. How good are you at staying focused on what's happening right in front of you? And especially if truly seeing your students as they come in. Picture them as they come in. Do you establish eye contact? Or are you still in your lesson plans? No judgment, just think about it. And in what ways are you respectful of others, colleagues, students, and especially yourself? In what ways do you honor your needs? Okay? We're going to go to be heard. Let's see. Okay, we'll start here. There are cards in front of you. These are called symbol cards. I am not, a solicitor, but I can tell you, having done this work for 10 plus years, I have never found a group of cards to replace these. I have searched far and wide, short of making my own, and I still continually come back to these cards. And if you don't want to spend hours looking for them on the internet, I have information here to support you. Only because you're going to be like, where did you get those cards? And I know they look totally old school, almost borderline 70s. And they work every time. PassageWorks talks about symbolic reasoning, because sometimes your students can't go there to name an emotion, but they can select a symbol to represent it, right? Kind of like weather check-in. How's your weather report? What I'm going to ask you to do right now, and you're going to stand up and choose a card. If somebody takes your card, do we need double decks? I'm not sure. But if someone takes your card, don't worry about it. Just capture the visual imprint, okay? You're going to select a card that represents for you how it's going in your school for you right now in whatever role you play. How's it going for you right now at your school or at your place of work? I'm not sure how many of you work outside of school. How's it going for you? And choose a card that represents that experience. Okay, and if someone takes your card, don't worry about it. You can reference it. And when you're ready, go ahead and now what we're going to do is we're actually going to go into what it really feels like to be heard. And as we do this exercise, I want you to think about how would you normally have students share out in a class or be heard, okay? For this process, we're actually going to do an activity called Wheel Within a Wheel. How many of you have ever done something called Wheel Within a Wheel? All newbies? Oh, you're going to love this. Some of you, okay. So we're going to count off A, B, A, B, A, B, or 1, 2. Actually, we'll do 1, 2, 1, 2. Ones are going to stay on the outside. Twos are going to pick their chair up and come and sit what we call knee to knee, eye to eye, directly across from the person next to you. And we'll just have to figure out how that plays out. But we'll just do that really quickly. So let's go count off 1.
1,
2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1,
2. 2? We'll do 2. Yeah. 2. And I'll do 2 unless you want to play? Okay, I'll be 2. So what we're going to do is 2s, go ahead and stand up, grab a chair, and go knee to knee, eye to eye across from the person sitting next to you. So you guys, maybe you go in front of him, and then I'll bring a chair. Okay. We'll practice this right now. When you see my hand, go ahead and raise your hand. And then eyes on me. 1, 2, 3. Great. Okay. So I'm kind of condensing a lot of things into one. When you go through my presentation, you'll be like, we didn't go over this. It's all good. You can email me. Speaker A, we're going to have you guys be the outer circle first. Speaker A, you know who you are, hopefully now, outer circle. You're going to speak for 45 seconds. Speaker B, you're going to listen. I teach this to our students every year, and we have to keep going over it and over it and over it. Active listening skills. When you think about it, when do you feel most valued? when someone's actually listening to you. You ask any 4th and 5th grader, about listening. Oh, my mom never listens to me. She pretends to, but she's not, right? So we as adults have to also model this for our young people, active listening, and we have to teach it. We have to teach it. Students do not know how to actively listen because they don't have role models necessarily doing it for them. So as we teach active listening, I always like to say, I was elementary and high school. That nice little poster, listen and silent are spelled with the same letters for a reason. Yeah, I always love, there's always one person who doesn't know that. Listen and silent are spelled with the same letters for a reason. Inner circle, especially because you probably are teachers and very social, it's going to drive you nuts, but you're actually not going to say anything. You can revert to probably head nodding, but reserve, try and resist the urge to jump in. What you are going to do, and what I always ask my students to do, is you're going to listen intentionally for connection. You're going to listen for connection. There's already too much divisiveness. We do not have a culture that teaches to look for connection. Not necessarily looking for similarities, right? You look like me, we have the same thing. I want you to, from a heart space, listen for connection, because that's where opportunity is. But you've got to teach that to your students, because their default, what's their default? The opposite. Why this person, why I hate this, why I don't like him, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Now listen for opportunity, for connection. Okay? So now, outer circle, you're going to have 45 seconds to share why you chose the card that you did. And I do caution sometimes with students, feel free to resist the urge to overshare, and I do talk about oversharing. Default if you just want to show your card. If you're not really willing to talk about it, just show your card. And then you can sit in awkward silence for 45 seconds. And I name that too because they all laugh because they know exactly what that feels like. And it's okay. Okay? And sometimes the silence itself is even more palpable. And that's sometimes when the tears come. But you've just moved a student from head to heart in a way that your words never could. Okay? So just some things to think about. All right, so 45 seconds, outer circle. Why you share, or why you chose the card you did, and if you don't have the card in front of you, just describe what it was and why you chose it. 45 seconds begins, stopwatch, now. It goes by fast, doesn't it? Feel free to finish your sentences, by the way. You don't have to just cut it off. Okay, great. Now, inner circle. You are ready to begin. Okay. And now I'm going to give you a minute and a half to dialogue. So everything you've been waiting to say, or the connections that you've made, or the silence that you want to honor. Okay? 1 minute, 30 seconds begins, and now have a free-flowing dialogue about any connections that you made. Go. Now, I know you guys were in conversation, but did any of you hear anything? Laughter? Did you hear the laughter? I don't know if you saw the smiles. Other part I loved is, are you serious? I'm so sorry. What is that an expression of? Empathy. Empathy. We didn't have to teach that, right? I didn't have to give a lecture on empathy and what it looks like or sounds like. It came from you. Now, granted, you came through those doors, so you're probably on the evolution, developmental scale of right up there, right? So you knew that that's a part of who you are. My point is, we often default to feeling like these things need to be more structured. Perfect example, I think my chemistry teacher gave the students a work day. And both students came to me and said, oh, today, Mr. Brown let us work, on our past due work, but it was a therapy session. And it was so great, right? They needed that. Hopefully they get their chemistry work done too, right? But sometimes they just need each other. They need connection, and it feeds them. How many of you felt fed or connected in some way to the person across from you, even just a little bit? How many of you even knew the person before? One person, two people, okay? So we don't even need to be best buds for the last 10 years to be able to make this connection. We just need to be human, and we need to name our humanity. Okay. So where I want to go with this is just a couple more, but this is where it gets really fun. So we won't need the cards anymore. You can actually, if you want to put them just pass them to the person in the middle can just toss them behind. I'll do cleanup crew. We're going to stay in the circle, only this is where, you've built a certain level of trust. I know, I'm sorry, I'm going to break the bonds. I'm going to invite you to say thank you to the person that you met. And then the inner circle, you're going to stand up and rotate one to your left. Because I don't want the relationships to just end there. Introduce yourself. Oh. You guys are so good. You just jump right in. I love that. Our students won't do that. And in fact, I think we were doing 45 seconds. I usually, for students, will only do max of 30 seconds, and it'll still be awkward after 10. Why? Why is that? They actually have to build capacity to learn to speak about themselves, because most of them, at least I'm talking about the students I work with, we have a 25% SPED, 504, receiving special services student body. We're a public charter school. But we attract, as a blended learning environment, kids who feel safe behind a screen. Kids who feel safe behind a screen. What do we know about them? Especially at the high school level, what have they been through? Bullying, right? Sexual identity exploration, bullying as it relates to that. Post-traumatic stress syndrome, most of them, right? I mean, it's really, really intense. And so knowing that, we really have to be gentle. We really have to go slow. And notice how you're still only sharing with one person. So the beautiful thing, and one of the things I want you to think about if you start exploring SEL programs, where are they building in, are they conscious of the levels of safety that you must respect and honor? Level 1, name games, ball passing, ball tosses. You are not sharing anything maybe other than your name, right? This is actually level 2, level 3, right here. But you're adults. You've built some level of emotional capacity. But notice how I still use symbol cards. How would it have been different if I just asked you to just talk about where you're at? How many of you found it helpful to make a reference to the symbol card? Yeah. It was a talking tool. By the way, the ostrich with his head in the sand, most selected card of high schoolers around midterm exams. The ostrich, there's an ostrich who's got his head buried in the sand. That or the dark moon, because they're all exhausted. And what do we know about teenagers, right? And sleep. But they love these cards. So now we're going to go to a little more. So we kind of went to like a level 2 with that conversation. I'm going to bring you up for air to a level 1. If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? I'm going to give you some think time. If you could have any superpower. Now this one's playful, right? It's a little safer. And most students will default to invisibility. The power to be invisible. Okay? So if you could have any superpower, and now this time, because the outside circle went first, guess whose turn it is? We're all about fairness, right? So inner circle, you have 45 seconds to share about the superpower you wish you could have. 45 seconds begins now. Oh. Sorry, I forgot I was timing. Got a few extra seconds. Okay, and so now outer circle, it's your turn. Inner circle, you'll listen. Go, 45 seconds. I'm loving this laughter. Okay, this is an example of one that you might not choose to debrief. You don't always have to have the dialogue, right? Because this one was fun. We're not going to overanalyze it. We're going to move on. And so playing with it, yeah, not limiting you when we go out the door, go grab coffee, continue the conversation. Go make your costumes, I'm with you. But my point is, there are no rules, there's options. And I'm pulling these out of my pocket, right? But it's only because I know what tools are already in my pocket. So now this next one is going to be, oh, I'm going to let you stay with this person. And I'm going to tell you why I'm going to let you stay with this person. Yep, sorry. You're out of luck. No. How do you feel about that right now? The reason why is because I'm actually going to go kind of to a level 3. Is that okay? What? I know. Trust me. Have faith in me. And the level 3 that I want to go to, I'm wondering why this isn't really showing up, but let's see. My image isn't coming up. I might have to back up. Oh, we'll go here. I think this is better. I'm going to stay at level 2. This one's a fun one. This one's good for those of you who work with faculty at all, after your staff get to know each other a little better. It's a great way, instead of just saying your name, what you like to do in your free time. These are all, by the way, level 1s that you would do with high school students. What do you like to do outside of school? There's a whole protocol of level 1, level 1. You just keep doing this till you feel that kids are really listening to each other. It's a great question. Who are your people? If you were to describe who your peeps are, like right last night I went to that little cocktail hour for Sanford Harmony, and the speaker was up there and he was mentioning white privilege and having courageous conversations about race, and I came to him, I told him how much I appreciated his presentation, and I knew out of how many people live in California, and he's from San Diego, the person I said, do you happen to know so-and-so? She's in the Berkeley, Oakland area. Opposite spectrum of California, there's a lot of people in between. I said, I'm just going to throw this out there. She does restorative justice practice, right? Named her. Oh my God, I love her. They knew each other, right? Because they're in the same circles. Even though you got millions of people, right, in California, they knew each other. And it's because we share the same people. And I knew we shared the same people because of what he presented. And it wasn't just what was on his slide, but also what he shared. And he went there, and I picked up on it. And so when I think about who my people are not afraid to talk about white privilege, not afraid to step in, intervene, and educate about it proactively, not reactively, right? My people are people who have survived teaching in the inner city. Compton was my first placement. I lived in Watts. My people are educators who so desperately want to know the experience of their students that they go there and they live alongside them and they invest in the communities that raise them. Those are my people. And I'll take one more leap and say my people are you. Because anyone who's willing to even learn about SEL is definitely someone I want to have on my team. Okay? So I want you to think about, who are your people? In 45 seconds or less, how would you describe your tribe, your people, the ones who feed your soul? Okay? That one felt really short, didn't it? Yeah, okay. Second side, or inner circle, 45 seconds, begins now. And now I'll give you 1:30. Share connections, ask questions, have a dialogue. Go. All right, well, we are actually, believe it or not, at the end of our time together. It's already 2:10. I'm going to wait for my internet to catch back up, but for this moment, because you've been talking a lot, interacting a lot, I'm going to invite you to go back to that place where we started from. We call it a golden moment of silence within PassageWorks. We call it a golden moment. And for this golden moment, I'm just going to ring this chime. And for the duration of this chime, I just want you to breathe. Okay, come back to that place of silence and connect with the experience. You can connect with the ideas, but really move just to hold the experience. Okay? So it'll be for the duration of the chime. Here we go. If you want to close your eyes, if you're comfortable, if you just want to find a spot on the wall, take a moment, connect with the breath. One more time, breathing in deep. Exhaling long. I'm going to take a moment now just to bring it all together, which is to basically just ask, so what can this look like in your classroom? What can this look like in your school? Think small. Think doable. Even if it's you at your desk, taking a breath before your students come into the classroom. I'm a big fan of taking with you what resonates, leave behind what doesn't. What are one or two experiences, thoughts that you would like to take with you? And now, because we actually have, I think, a really great group, you guys have been fantastic, I'm going to model for you one more activity, just so you have it with you, okay? If you could all please stand up, we're going to form a circle around the outside of the chairs. I think we have space for that. If not, just push some chairs back. We're going to incorporate a game called Pass the Pulse, while also doing an activity called Calling Conditions. We're going to take right over left, remembering that the L, we can make the L with the left hand. I always give my students just some scaffolding. Okay, right over left, otherwise it will be very awkward at the end. I know not everybody's a hand holder, but I'm going to trust that you guys are, or that you're willing. Oh, do we have to push in? All right, I might have to default. No, let's try. Let's try. Yeah, just go in. Just go in one more. Oh, I think we have to go in one more. Right over left. And maybe you guys have been on a team before, and so you know what's going to come next. Okay, right over left. What I'd like you to do is think of a word, a phrase, or a feeling. Notice how I went word, because that's mind, or feeling, which is heart. Right? Word, phrase, for those of you who can't think of one word ever, phrase, or feeling that you're experiencing right now. Okay? I'm going to choose so grateful. And now I'm going to pass the pulse. And you may pass, so if you don't have a word phrase or would prefer not to, you can hold the silence and then pass the pulse just by gently squeezing the hand of the person next to you.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
I feel calm.
Hopeful.
Reflective.
Peaceful.
Tranquil.
Intimate.
Yay.
Aloha. I was, oh gosh. What did you say? You had the same word.
Tranquil.
Guy.
Oh, me?
Guy.
Reflective.
Sorry. Calm.
Honest.
Optimistic.
Refreshed.
Connected.
Friendship.
Enjoyable.
Excited.
Ready.
Blessed.
Nice.
Filled.
Awesome. Thank you all for being so fully present with me today. A colleague asked, how do you feel after a presentation? Relief? And I said, well, it depends on the group. I said, sometimes they feed my soul, sometimes they suck it out of me. I'm feeling fed. So thank you all. Now the purpose of why our hands are over here is because now we're going to lift them over our heads and we're going to take everything we learned here today and we're going to embrace our students with it when we see them next. So bringing it out in front, just imagine taking everything with you.